Hey, we're back. This is John.
And it's Eric.
And it's What If Geeks. Paul is out for a couple of weeks. He's just goofing off somewhere, not hanging out with us. So we figured it's a good time for Eric and I to go over a couple of movies that Paul hasn't been able to catch up on. That we are way behind on our reviews. So we're going to start tonight with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Jeez.
Only
Uh,
two months and 5 days after the original release.
they say better late than never, but that's probably not true.
Actually, you know what? It's somewhat opportune because it's going to be on Disney Plus later this week. So
There you go. So we'll just pretend that we planned this all along, and we're dropping this review right before the release on Disney Plus. It's all a part of the plan. All right, so Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings, theatrical release was September 3rd. I saw it right around that weekend, right when it came out. Took the whole family to go see it. Like we said, it's going to be released here this coming Friday, November 12th on Disney Plus. Um, Official synopsis: martial arts master Shang-Chi confronts the past he thought he left behind when he's drawn into the web of the mysterious Ten Rings organization. I like that. That's pretty much sums up the whole damn thing. Uh, so for a budget of 150 to 200 million, roughly, maybe,
so
possibly.
it was 100. Well, this is one of those weird things. So they agreed to in Australia, or almost the whole thing in Australia. They did most of the filming in Sydney, but they got like a $50 million tax subsidy for that. So the actual amount of money they spent is about 150 million, which is pretty interesting because it makes this, despite, not to get too far ahead, but despite the cool special effects and all the stuff they've done, that makes this one of the cheapest MCU movies that they've made to date. The only ones that are cheaper are like Captain America, Winter Soldier, the original Hulk movie. And there's a couple others, Iron Man 1 maybe, but most of them they spent way more than this.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. And speaking of the effects are really good in this movie.
they are really good. I think it's funny because the driver for that is actually what we'll get into in a second, which is that they just didn't pick any really big names for roles in this movie, right? These are
Yeah,
all people, I shouldn't say all, but they are mostly people you've only seen in one or two other movies, and maybe zero if you don't follow like you know Hong Kong Hollywood
right.
and Asian
Cinema.
kung fu movies and stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so their box office opening weekend was 75.5 million. Currently though, they're sitting at 224 million domestic and 428 million worldwide. So they did good.
Yeah, they did good. That'd put it in the top 10 for 2021 anyway. I think it'd be number 7 or 6. So it's
Yeah,
pretty good gross, especially considering it's, again, fairly low budget film for MCU.
yeah, and for I would say a character again because we go back to this thing with Marvel.
B
Marvel
movie.
takes these random, C and D list characters out of the and make amazing movies out of them. This is one again, like I knew who he was. I think we've talked about it before. I knew who he was only because of his appearance in like other comics. Like he would guest appear in Spider-Man or something, and I'd see him there. So I knew of him. And I knew he was essentially like their answer to Bruce Lee, right? Uh, and that's
Yeah,
all I knew.
we'll talk
He's
about that.
more than that. He's much
Yeah,
more than that. But that's that's how I saw him. I just saw him as Marvel's Bruce Lee when I was growing up. But you want to go through some of the cast and crew real quick, or
yeah, sure. So this one is written and directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, which is a no name to me. I looked it up. He's done a couple movies in the past, Short Term 12 and a drama called Just Mercy, but not any action movies or anything like that. Not even anything like in the sort of kung fu genre, which I'd almost put this in. I think, without knowing for sure, I think he was picked because he's an Asian American. So his mom is Japanese and his father is Irish and Slavic, I think. But he was born in Hawaii. But I think because they went with basically almost all Asian American cast, that they went ahead and went that way with the director too. I assume. Again, I don't know that for sure. It's just me speculating, but it's weird. It's interesting. I know this is a low budget MCU movie, but it's interesting to pick somebody who's like not even tangentially connected to the MCU in any way to head up a movie. And I read an interview with him, and he even said, like, you know, they were asking him, like, is it nerve-wracking, like, going to pitch this in front of a huge company like, you know, like Marvel and Kevin Feige and whatever? And he was like, well, normally, yes, but I was sure I wasn't getting the job. So that kind of made it like less, you know what I mean? He's like, I was totally shocked when they called me back in and said I got it.
Right.
But yeah, so screenplay on this was done by Dave Callahan, who did Wonder Woman 1984, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the Mortal Kombat reboot, Zombieland Double Tap, which you and I both loved, the Godzilla 2014 movie, and then all of the Expendables. He's done the screenplay for all of those. So he's obviously in the right spot here. Cinematography, this one's interesting. So Destin, the director, got to pick his cinematographer for this. I guess that might be normal. I'm actually not really sure. But who he picked for this was Bill Pope, who was the cinematographer for all the Matrix movies. And he wanted it to have, again, this was in the same interview I read about him, but he wanted it to have sort of a Matrix feel to it, which I'm not sure they missed entirely.
No,
I mean, it's different, but there's definitely some of that really cool camera work. And well, we'll get to it in the spoilers, but yeah, so I mean, he also did Alita Battle Angel, and just for shits and giggles, because it surely doesn't contribute to his cinematography chops, but he also did the cinematography for Team America World Police.
Well, you get a very strong world police feel in this movie. There's zero.
So Simu Liu, I think is his name. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce that. Plays Sean or Shang-Chi. He's basically new. He's done acting in other parts of the world, not US, not Hollywood stuff. But Aquafina, who is a comedian, rapper. I'm not sure exactly where she falls, but she plays his best friend Katie in this. She has done some other Disney work, which I'm assuming is how she landed here, because she did the voice of Sisu in the Raya and the Last Dragon. Michelle Yeoh plays Ying Nang. Anybody that watches Star Trek stuff, and I know that's not you, John, but Star Trek Discovery, she plays one of the main characters. Actually, a few different iterations of that character because of alternate universes and shit they're doing in Star Trek Discovery, but she's definitely good. And then kind of a weird one here, Ben Kingsley plays this character called Trevor Slattery, which is also in Iron Man 3, and is in this movie. No, I won't spoil it. I'm not going to say what his other role is here, because we'll just talk
we'll get into it later,
but yeah. But I mean, he's actually a really famous actor, and even before that, like a stage actor, like like a stage performer. He's got like numerous Academy Awards and stuff. And what I thought was super ironic in this is that the backstory of the Trevor character about doing the Shakespeare plays and the shit that they talk about is actually like in a large part his real backstory in life.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if he did this because it was a fun thing to act, or a fun thing to act this out, like I'm an actor who's playing an actor who's, you know what I mean, like Inception shit or whatever.
Yeah.
But what was also funny, and this was again that same interview I read. I wish I remember. I think it was a Variety interview, but it doesn't really matter. But the same interview I read, when the director called this guy about this part to see if he wanted to take it, he did a role play on the phone for like 2 fucking minutes where he was talking to the character he was going to play about whether or not he should accept the offer. Like he was doing that back and forth. He said it was so hilarious. It was like the weirdest call he's ever done with any actor, but he thought it was hilarious. So
that's amazing.
So maybe there's a bit of
Ben
that.
Kingsley won me just by his performance in Iron Man 3, and we'll get to that later. But and again, like you said, like very, very well-known actor. So I knew him. When they got him for that role, I was like, oh, wow. And then you find out what it is, and we'll get to that later. But he shows back up in this, and just the fact that he embraced the absurdity of the character was great.
Yeah.
It shows how much of a sense of humor about himself that he's got.
Definitely. But I mean, he really plays into it. I think it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, no, he does amazing.
And you know, for him, it's probably a real opportunity to act like a person that's acting. Like, no, you know what I mean? Um, so a couple points of note I threw in here. When Paul Gulacy first drew Shang-Chi, this is back in the 70s when they started him, and this is what I was talking about a second ago. He actually based the character on Bruce Lee's character from Enter the Dragon. And there's a lot more that goes to that backstory behind this, because Bruce Lee had auditioned for Kung Fu, and Warner Brothers owned the rights to Kung Fu, and there was like this whole reason that they couldn't use any of that. They had to come up with like a parallel concept. But I mean, this is what it was basically born from, you know?
Yep.
And then the other thing I thought was interesting is that in the comics, Shang-Chi is mixed. His mom is a white lady, and his dad is the Asian one. And the actor that they cast in this, the director is mixed, and yeah. Well, so the point I'm making is, in the actual movie, though, they decided to go full on Asian. They didn't do that. They changed the story. He has two Asian parents, and I don't know why, and I'm not sure that it matters, but maybe it was just, you know, sort of diving deeper into that, you know, full
Adding in
Asian.
some of the mystic, yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? On Rotten Tomatoes, this one is, well, not unexpectedly for my part, but really high, 92% on the critics. It's currently 98% on the user rating. So
Yeah.
Obviously people other than us like this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, now going into expectations, I'll give you a break. Expectations going into the movie.
I could talk all day, brother.
Yeah, it's I mean, honestly, like I said, Marvel's got a habit now of taking these characters and nobody knows, and making really great movies out of them. I don't know that I expected it to do as good as it did, but it really like threw me like, wow, they really went all out on this one and really did a good job with it. I loved it a lot. But yeah, my expectations going in were high just because it's Marvel. But again, it was like, I don't know what they're going to do to connect it here and there, and we get into that a little bit later as far as connecting it to the overall universe. But it's there. It's good. How about you?
I thought it was great. I actually, the trailers didn't really do it justice, I don't think. I mean, the trailers that we looked at and reviewed anyway. I had a feeling it was going to be a little bit, you know, kung fu-ish from the get-go. But they really did not play up how well they sort of wrote a story for this character, yeah. And then B, how well that they really did with the special effects and stuff. That was like, I was kind of blown away by some of it. Like, just it's not necessarily that they're so good, like the special effects are like blow your mind, but like the concepts they came up with, how the rings would work, and the visuals that went with that, and the creatures and stuff that they came up with in this. I was kind of blown away by the creativity of it, maybe more than the special effects. It was just kind of like a little more than I expected.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that covers the first impressions too. So
yeah, sorry, I'm
no, you're good, because I mean I did the same thing. So all right, without giving away any specifics, how would you describe this movie to someone? I mean, you did it. I think when you first watched it, didn't you say it was something like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon meets something? I forget what the hell you said.
I don't remember what I said, but that's exactly what it is. It's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon meets the MCU.
Yeah.
But maybe more than that. There's actually a decent, like, family-based story twist in here. So
yeah,
I'm not sure what to throw that in as in this one-liner, but
yeah. But look, if you like the MCU and you like martial arts movies, you're gonna love this. So I guess that's who I would recommend it to. Anyone who wants to keep up with what's going on in the MCU, and anyone who likes any kind of martial art movie, be it old school, new school, whatever.
Yeah, and like they've done with Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor and some of the others, there's actually quite a bit in this one of comedy inserted in there too. So if you dig the hard action plus comedy, relief stuff that they've been doing with a few of these, you'll definitely like it for that reason too.
Yeah, definitely. All right, sweet. You want to get into the spoiler discussion, huh?
Yeah, let's do spoilers.
I can say before I forget, by the end of this movie, since we're going to be in spoilers anyway, I'm just going to skip to one comment Noah made at the end of this movie. He was sitting next to me, we're sitting there eating popcorn, and something happens in the end of this movie, and he just starts giggling his head off and goes, "What's going on with this movie?" He goes, "It's like Doctor Strange magic." And no, he goes, "It's like Doctor Strange and Harry Potter magic and martial arts fighting and Godzilla." And he's like, he goes, it's everything. And he started laughing. I said, yeah. And he kind of described it perfectly. So, all right, so let's get into the movie. You want to go or you want me to go?
Oh, is it my turn?
Sure.
All right, so we can compile the first, 10-15 minutes into probably a few sentences, and it gets to the better part anyway. So there's this fellow named Shu Wenwu, I think. I'm just going to call him Wenwu, played by
That's a good idea.
Tony Leung. So he discovers the 10 rings, which give him basically immortality or near immortality, and then all these sort of godlike powers. And
one key difference between that and the comics, in the comics, the Mandarin character wears these actual 10 rings on his fingers, right? And just like there, they give him various powers, fire, teleportation, blah, 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 whatever, right? These are bands, rings that he wears on his forearms, 5 on each forearm, and then they kind of do different things.
Yeah.
So definitely an updated concept, but it was cool.
But it's better, and this goes right back to where I was saying they're really creative with the visuals and stuff, because those rings will like fly off the arm and hit people. They'll like spin around. They do all kinds of crazy shit in this.
Yeah, they kind of like.
I feel like you'd be hindered on if you had finger rings. Like it wouldn't have been as neat. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, it'd be like Green Lantern on steroids or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, those things are pretty cool. I like them.
So he establishes this organization called the 10 Rings, which I think by the end of the intro in the movie has basically been proven that they can topple governments down and they overthrow leaders, and they basically are like a underground new world order or whatever.
Yeah, they're like an empire unto themselves.
Yeah. So that's condensing the first intro part pretty quick, but so then they jump ahead to the late 90s, because why not? And Wenwu is searching for this hidden village called Talo, right? And there's supposed to be these mystical creatures there and people who can wield these powers, and the village offers immortality too, I think. I don't remember what the hell it was. But anyway, he wants to find this place. He does actually find the entrance to the village, and it's through this crazy shifting forest, which they don't actually really show you the breadth of until the end of the movie, or towards the end of the movie. But anyway, he ends up at the entrance to this village, and he meets this woman, Ying Li, who's played by Fala Chen, and she has no rings yet. She has all the powers and then some of the rings. She has this whole like kung fu mystical, and this is where we get our first battle scene. And the way it's done is, this is where I thought the first time, I thought, oh shit, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, because she's doing things with her feet, like she's sweeping her feet back, but then like the fucking, there's like leaf tornadoes happening, and it's like all this craziness, and she can jump higher than normal, she can move faster than normal. It just all kind of reminded me of that. But her power is, I guess, granted by the place, not by the artifact like he has. Right. But the two of them are relatively closely matched in this battle.
Mm-hmm.
And they do some really interesting cinematography stuff, which is definitely borrowed from Matrix, I think, where they slow the whole thing down, like while they're fighting, and they show him like looking at her like, oh my God, she's amazing. Kind of like they do like weird stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like why he's trying to punch her or why they're spinning around in a circle or whatever. He's like looking back at her in awe. So she does best him in that fight. His rings do not help him win. And so what happens though is those looks were the sort of precursor for what's coming, which is that the two of them end up falling in love. She takes him or wants to take him back to the village to live, but the villagers don't want anything to do with him. And so they end up leaving the village and going out into the real world to live together and whatever. And so they end up having two children, which are Shang-Chi and Xialing. But I think for Xialing, we don't know that until later, right?
Yeah. You only know about Shang-Chi.
Yeah. So Wenwu ultimately abandons the Ten Rings organization that he created. He locks the rings away for safety. And then we sort of get to the real story. And I guess, yeah, you put a note here. So Ying Li does give Shang-Chi this emerald pendant, which becomes relevant soon in the movie, or later in the movie, I guess, not super soon, but
it's pretty soon.
Yeah.
It's like right after they flash forward, because then it kind of jumps into the story pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's basically flash forward to present day. A grown Shang-Chi is working as a valet in San Francisco, but he's using the American name Sean. His best friend at his job is Katie, played by Aquafina. And I wanted to mention this earlier because you said, you recognize her from a few things like Raya the Last Dragon. She was also in Crazy Rich Asians. And I don't know what it was initially when I think it was just her name. I was like, sounded goofy and I dismissed her pretty quickly, and I don't know why I really didn't give her much of a chance up until like the last couple of things I saw. I just kind of like I was watching movies and she happened to be in it. I never really like gave her much of a thought. But Crazy Rich Asian, she was good in. Raya the Last Dragon, I liked her character, like her voice acting in that. And then in this one, she kills it in this movie.
She was also the voice. I didn't really like it much, but I know you watched it. You remember the Dark Crystal reboot thing?
Yeah.
She's the voice of the Collector in that.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So there's a handful of things that I like. So I mean, like I'm a fan of hers now. I'm like, all right, she grew on me. So, like I said, there was nothing like concrete I could point my finger to that I just like every time I heard her name, I was like, whatever. There's another dopey celebrity just making up a name for herself and like trying to do something. I was like, whatever. And I think it also had to do with like the whole, rapper comedian trying to like get into movies and this and that. I was like, I didn't care. But now I'm a fan. She's good. I like her a lot. I really liked her in this movie. She was great.
Yeah, so, I thought she did really well. And she was for the most part the prime comic relief in this, which
she was. She was just like that, that every woman that was like being thrust into this mystical world and just like kind of like that. Basically spent half the movie with this what the fuck is going on vibe about her,
yeah.
But still like, wanting to be there for her friend and like not backing down from anything. So it was cool. So Sean receives a mysterious postcard with the image of a dragon on it, tells Katie that he believes it's from his sister. They get on a bus and they're approached by a group of guys. One dude tells them, give me your pendant. And basically alludes to like he knows the pendant has meaning and he's like, give it to me. Sean says no. In the group of guys, there's a giant dude with one arm, and all of a sudden he's got an energy blade for an arm. So it's like, okay, we're going full bore. What the fuck, He's attacking him with his energy blade arm thing. And so Shang-Chi's childhood training in combat kind of kicks in and he just starts fighting all these guys on a moving bus. And it's like a two-sectioned bus, like connected by a little
little accordion.
little accordion thing, and they're like back and forth on both sections, beating the piss out of each other, and like it's really cool cinematography. Right? It kind of had like like you said, the Matrix thing, but it also kind of had like a John Wick feel, with the camera angles and the movements.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of quick fighting, and he manages to beat them, but he still loses the pendant. Right. So that's when he explains to Katie, because she's like, "What's going on and who are you?" she's like, she doesn't know any of this side of him, right? So he reveals the postcard, tells her he thinks it's from his sister, who she knew nothing about. He said basically, like, I haven't spoken to her in forever. So they need to travel to Macau, where she is, and he fills her in more on the past. When they get there, they're first sent to an underground fight club. And the first thing you see is Wong from Doctor Strange in a cage match against the Abomination from the Hulk. And this was in the very last 2 seconds of the first trailer. And like the internet blew up about it. Like, holy shit, Abomination, right? So while we always knew because of Thunderbolt Ross and whatever else, that Hulk story, or that Hulk movie was a part, because of Tony Stark showing up at the end of it and all that. We knew it was a part of it, but they don't really reference it a whole lot. So to see the Abomination back, they're like, oh, sweet, So Wong manages to beat the Abomination by making one of the sling ring portals as Abomination goes to punch him and makes him punch himself in the face and knock himself out. That was pretty funny. So, they drag him out, and Shang-Chi agrees to enter the cage fights, and he's forced to fight his sister. The two of them go at it for a little while until he tells her that their father is coming after them. So she basically walks away and leaves him there, and the 10 Rings attack. Right? So Shang-Chi and Katie are running from the 10 Rings on the side of this fucking skyscraper.
Yeah, it's like that's actually a really cool fight scene. The scaffolding on the side of the skyscraper. I really like that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's maybe a little cheap given that they were going to do all those flips and tricks and whatever, but it's also really neat.
It works. It works. So like when you think like, he's going to get his ass kicked and, Katie's going to die, and his sister shows up out of nowhere and kind of helps him a little bit to fight the 10 Rings. But they all still manage to get captured when Wenwu appears, and they take them all back to the 10 Rings compound, where basically Wenwu tells Shang-Chi, I want you to take over as the leader of the 10 Rings. Shang-Chi wants nothing to do with him. And he has this whole conversation about what the 10 Rings means and this and that, about the power. And he even mentions Iron Man 3, where there was an American terrorist who had a fake actor portray the leader of the 10 Rings. And he says, he called himself the Mandarin. He goes, imagine naming yourself after an orange. I thought that was the funniest, just like self-referential kick in the nuts that Marvel gave itself. I was like, that was awesome. And so he knows of, and that's who Sir Ben Kingsley is in Iron Man 3. He's the fake Mandarin. And it was really funny. He was really good in that movie too. I know it's not an Iron Man 3 review, but because he's in this movie, there he comes across as like, he does all these videos from the 10 Rings, kind of very much like Al Qaeda, ISIS, right? They drop these little videos and he's talking and very much Mandarin like, whatever. And then when he gets caught by Iron Man, you realize that he's just an actor that the real villain of the movie put in that place as a figurehead to kind of like, keep the heat off himself. And he's literally just as soon as Iron Man threatens him, he's just like, whoop, and he sits in a chair and he's like, wait, my name's Trevor Slattery. I'm just an actor. I get paid to do this. No, I'm not really this guy. So they reference him in this, and it was kind of funny. Or they, I mean, they more than reference him, but like he talks about him, like how basically the Americans knew that the Ten Rings were real power, and how they were involved with Tony Stark and all that other shit. So when Shang-Chi still refuses, Wenwu imprisons them all, and when they get sent down to the dungeon, they actually meet Trevor Slattery. He's down there, and basically he tells them that he was going to be killed for his impersonation, but because of his acting ability, he basically became their fool,
Yeah, yeah. It's a
their
court
jester,
jester.
the court jester for Wenwu. And he's like, I have performances every night, and then he performs for Wenwu, and so he kept him around. Well, then like out of nowhere, he's got this little winged, faceless furball. He says, "Oh, his name is Morris," and he's like this little CGI thing, right? But this is like this little. It looks like a puppy with no face and wings, right? It's the weirdest fucking thing in the world.
You know, not to do too much of an aside,
Yeah.
but this is one of the other super creative things about it's not like the CGI is extra special or something, but the characters they designed for this are like fucking bizarre. Like all of them, not just this one. This
Yeah.
one's weird, but they're all kind of weird, minus
Yeah.
the dragons. But
Yeah.
they all are bizarro. Like they don't have the right number of eyes, nose, and mouths because they don't have any. Like
Right.
who the fuck comes up with this shit?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this thing literally acts like a puppy, jumping around, like trying to like curl up to, or a kitten, whatever, trying to curl up with Ben Kingsley's character, right? And so Slattery basically explains to them that this creature, Morris, comes from Shang-Chi's mother's hidden village, right, or hidden area, and that he can get them to it. So you want to take over?
Sure.
Sure.
Where are we?
We are Morris, the faceless demon. I mean, so they're gonna go look for the mother's village and try to. They're gonna escape and look for the mother's village and try to beat Wenwu there. Lost you. Okay. So anyway, so they head off to find this village. And
I thought I was supposed to explain how they escaped or something.
okay.
I don't actually remember.
I don't remember how they escape either. Is through a series of escapades. There you go.
I feel like we skipped some. Doesn't he find out like the path with the pendants? Like the pendants show him the path to the village or whatever.
Yes, when Wenwu takes both pendants from the kids, they are the eyes of a stone dragon, and when he puts them in there, the dragon basically spits out water, and the water forms somehow in magic the forest, and then you can see the path weaving in and out of the forest. So it's what happens is whenever you enter this forest, it happened to him when he first met his wife. As you enter it, the forest collapses behind you. So you have to follow this exact path or you're going to die.
Yeah, and apparently seeing it happen, the forest just fucking eats you if you're not quick enough.
Yeah. So, like with this magic water, he can see the path from above, which way he's got to go. So he just memorizes it. And okay, this is the way I got to go. Throws him in the dungeon. Slattery says, no, it's okay. Morris knows the way home. They escape, boost a car, and then they take off for this place. And that was one of the funnier scenes where it was Awkwafina driving, right?
I don't remember.
I think it was her driving and Slattery sitting there with Morris in his lap, and she's like, "You sure this thing knows where it's going?" And he's like, "Yep, you just got to do exactly what I tell you when I tell you to do it, because this thing is quick, right?" And he's like, "We're pretty sure we can get through this." She said, "What do you mean pretty sure?" And they do the whole thing where they're driving, and he's like, "Turn left, turn right, turn left," and they're turning just as the forest is like collapsing on them, and, like breaking off rearview mirrors and shit. But they make it through, show up to the village. The village is looking at them like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Uh, but I guess their aunt, their mother's sister, is there,
Yeah, that's Ying Nan.
Ying Nan, and she tells him because their father is convinced that their mother is trapped there and being held there, even though she died.
Yeah.
We find out that some of the opposing uh, mafias came in and killed her in front of Shang-Chi, and that was the other thing we missed. She got killed in front of him when he got older. He was a little boy. When he got older, Wenwu sent him with a dagger to kill the person who killed his mother, and he disappeared into America and never went home.
Oh yeah, I guess that's an
Instead of
important
going
part of the
back.
story.
Yeah. So he couldn't bring himself to kill the guy, and he disappeared.
So I want to know that they're in a high-speed vehicle making turns on a dime. How the fuck did people get in there, 500 years ago or whatever when Wenwu first did it? He's just running at the speed of light. I mean,
No, I mean they show when he first showed up, they were in vehicles.
were they?
Yeah,
I
they
don't
were in
remember
like your old school Jumanji type Jeep with the tire on the hood,
Mhm.
like a Jurassic Park kind of vehicle. And one of them gets knocked over the side of the ridge. But yeah, so the villagers are like, what are you doing here? The aunt says,
Well,
uh,
she gives them the whole history, right? The
she gives him
whole
she tells him everything that happened and
there
where
was like the dweller in darkness, it's like an evil spirit, basically evil dragon spirit, maybe. I don't know.
it's something, yeah. Basically, it's gonna eat people's souls and shit, and then
Yeah, and
they
then
are the ones that keep it locked in this mountain or whatever.
yeah, well,
And
the white dragon, the great protector or whatever it was called, was what trapped it in that mountain, right, and locked it up. But even though it can't leave that mountain, it can apparently still communicate with people, and it was sending the bullshit messages to Wenwu about his wife being trapped in there or whatever.
yeah, through the rings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but she says, yes, your mother's here, but really, it's just one of those like fake scenes where you go to the next room and it's just a memoriam to the mother. So, yeah, yes, she definitely died, right? So they decide they're going to get ready to fight the Ten Rings organization, and they've got dragon scale weapons, right? Remember all of them, everything that the
Yeah.
boat was like
Yep.
they were gifted dragon scales to make weapons out of, which is kind of cool. She gives him dragon scale armor, which kind of gives him that comic book Shang-Chi look. And then the Ten Rings show up.
Well, you can't forget the whole village training thing, like
Oh yes, yeah.
Circa Seven Samurai, or the episode of Mandalorian that was based on it.
I thought with Aquafina and the bow and everything, I was thinking like more like back in the 80s, 90s, Disney's Mulan. I thought they're
Yeah,
gonna start singing I'll make a man out of you. But yeah.
she actually learned archery for this movie. I read
Yeah,
she
yeah,
actually trained in it.
yeah. So yeah, so they all show up and fucking chaos ensues. They all start fighting each other. Um, Wenwu decides he's going to go and use the rings to break open this thing because he's convinced that's where his wife is. When he goes there to start, these lesser demon things start coming out and sucking people's souls out.
Yep.
Right. And basically, what they're doing is they're sucking out this energy and bringing it back to the dweller in darkness to feed it. Right. Uh, Shang-Chi tries to stop his father. They fight for a little while. The father basically cracks open the mountain, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Well, he I don't know, like Shang-Chi almost dies basically and falls in the water, and
yes,
then
yeah,
the great protector dragon revives him or whatever, or something. I don't know exactly what happens, but and then comes
well,
out of
the fight is very equal between the two of them, and then because Shang-Chi starts to tap into like the magic that he inherited from his mother. And so it's very, but then Wenwu winds up essentially killing him and throwing him into the water. But
Yeah.
the protector dragon revives him, and just as Wenwu lets loose with the dweller in darkness and lets him out, so this thing gets out and is starting to like feed off of the souls that these little things are bringing it, and starting to get ready to lay waste to this whole village. And that's when Shang-Chi comes flying out of the fucking water on a goddamn white dragon. And you're like, and that's when Noah said, "What is going on in this movie?" He was like, "This is amazing." So yeah, so the whole like the dragon fights the demon. The father realizes that he's been lied to, tries to help protect his son, winds up getting killed, passes on the rings to Shang-Chi. So now Shang-Chi has the 10 rings, but is, I guess, I don't know how they're going to explain why the voice doesn't talk to him so much, as for like the father did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not corrupted by the evil side of it. So I guess it depends on just maybe because the father lost his wife and he was just
Or maybe because they really defeated it instead of just trapping it.
could
I don't
be.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, because like so he and this dragon defeat this damn thing, um, and I mean that's pretty much the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean the in battle scene is epic, epic. Like
It's ridiculous.
the
Like
crazy dragons, all the
you've got
warriors that
troops
are
fighting troops. You've got dragons fighting Goliath demon gods. You got soul sucking little demons flying around. The thing is fucking crazy.
Yeah, it is. That's why, not to deviate too much, but I said several times now, I think that I like that Aquaman sort of brought in the bigger battlefield to things, which
Yeah.
I guess they did it in Endgame too, but it didn't feel quite the same as this. This is like everything is very in your face, and you feel like there's like 3 or 4 different battlefronts going on, and like you know what I mean? It's like dragon versus dragon or dragon versus demon, whatever. It's like ground troops versus ground troops, the 10 rings guys against each other. You know what I mean? It's kind of like this whole multi-level dynamic of fighting that goes on in these. It's really freaking cool. And it feels like an epic battle.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, so then you basically you get this whole little aside of uh after the fight, Shang-Chi and Katie go back to America, and it's kind of a callback to one of the beginning scenes where they're talking to two of their friends, just their American friends, about like what they did the day before. It was really like just partying and this and that, whatever, blah blah. Blah. But then like it's the same thing, same bar, and they're talking about what they did the night before, but they're telling this like whole like. And then the great white protector dragon came flying out of the water and whatever. And these two people are just looking at them like, all right, whatever. If you're not gonna take this conversation seriously, we're not here for it. And then a portal opens up behind them, right? And as Wong steps out,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
this is we need you. And he's like, well, we gotta go. And they leave. And the people are sitting there like, that really just happened, right? So you cut the credits, and then the post-credit scene was the 10 ring scene, right?
The mid-credit scene was the one where Wong introduces Banner and Carol Danvers.
Yes. Captain Marvel, yeah.
Captain Marvel, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and their banner is a hologram, or they're both holograms, I think, right?
Yeah,
Just
I
much
think
like
so,
they
yeah.
were in Endgame.
But Banner is not the
Professor Hulk anymore.
the Professor Hulk anymore. Yeah,
He's still wearing a sling, and if you notice, his hair is longer and gray.
I
And
didn't notice that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're alluding to the Maestro version of the Hulk from the comics, where like he was like future imperfect storyline. He was again giant Hulk, but he was a little bit balding, and he had long gray hair and a beard, and he had basically killed all the Avengers, and he had taken over the world, kind of thing. It just kind of seemed like they were alluding to that because his hair was gray and whatever. Who knows?
Yeah, you know what? Sorry to go off topic a little, but this is interesting too because this whole movie had near zero to do with the MCU. Like, you would never have had to see another movie to understand what was happening here. It's all irrelevant. And then they tied it into the mid-credit scene. And not to jump the shark or anything, but I told you before, and you haven't seen it yet, but Eternals is like that too. There's only like a couple joking references, but the whole story plays out on its own with no MCU knowledge necessary. So it almost seems like they're going with a pattern of that. Sort of tell a story, do the introduction, mid-scene credits, do a sequel setup, post-scene credits, which, because that's the next thing, right? That's the next thing here, which is that.
That post-credit scene where you see the Ten Rings organization.
Yeah.
The sister walks in and sits on the throne, or whatever, sits in front of them, and basically says, "All right, we've got work to do," or whatever. Basically saying, "Okay, she took over from her father."
Yeah, and I think we talked about this before too, talking about so she's going to be the bad guy for the sequel, I assume, is how they're lining that up.
Right.
There'll be some Shang-Chi follow on where she'll be the main villain. But on that note, the villain in this, Wenwu, is not even all villain, and I think we've talked before about Marvel and even worse DC struggling to make a bad guy like a good, memorable bad guy, like having a reason to be a bad guy that isn't all just like, oh, I want to take over the world, $1 million, that kind of shit. I think they did really good with this one, where Wenwu is like, I mean, he's just a dude. He's found some powerful artifact shit. He
was a bad guy throughout the years, because he wanted power, but then he gave it all up for love. And when love was taken away from him, he became bad again. But the rest of his motivation throughout this movie was getting back that love.
Yeah, well, and even then, when it came to the point where he realized it was impossible, the choice he made was to save his son and die himself, right? So he gets like a full, it's almost a bouncing redemption arc, he's a bad guy that became a good guy. He's still kind of a good guy doing bad things. Okay, he's a good guy.
Yeah. So his arc was really good in this movie.
Yeah, I thought it was surprising, and villains need more depth like this. And now putting his sister into this spot in a lot of ways actually makes sense for the same kind of reasons. Like, she could have lots of motivations to be the bad guy, given that everything that happened to her after her brother left. And I'm glad they're doing that. I'm glad they're sort of putting more spin, more interest onto the bad guys and making them something different.
Yeah, no, I was really happy with that. So, I mean, overall, this is easily one of my favorite movies, especially of this year, like the last couple of years. It definitely knocked it out of the park for me.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I like kung fu movies for what it's worth, so maybe I'm slightly tame. Although I will say, like, the over the top flying kung fu shit, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, can be in some parts. I actually don't like that much, but for a superhero, like, they clearly have some magical power artifact that's helping it. It's not like it works for me easier. It's easier for me. I like this. I thought this was really good. I love the magical creatures stuff. I felt like that was totally out of the box. Thinking on a lot of that stuff. The creature fight scene and the whole battle at the end were freaking awesome. I think it was good. It was good. It was really good. And the comedy they inserted, it's a little bit cheesy sometimes, but most of the comic relief in this is actually good and not overplayed. It's not like saturated. It's just funny commentary from a side character here and there. Maybe something happens, like they fall and get lucky and don't die, but for the most part, it was really well done. It all worked well together.
Yeah. So, all right. Any alibis?
Not after that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, you covered it. Look, if you haven't seen this yet, for whatever reason, whatever rock you're sleeping under, maybe you're behind a mountain with the Dweller of darkness, go watch this when it hits Disney Plus on Friday. All right, that's it. Like, comment. No, sorry, like, subscribe, ring a bell, comment down below. Let us know what you think of this movie. If you agree about how good it was, if you thought it could have been better, whatever, hit us up at whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all that happy shit as my messages are blowing up. They're already blowing up. Look at that. We're not even posted yet. All right, that's it. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Wenwu, forever.
There you go. You got a forever in there.